Hello, and welcome to this recorded service from the Ipswich Methodist Circuit. My name is Steve Mann. I'm a circuit minister based at the south end of the circuit, living in Capel and serving the churches of Capel, Elmsett, Bromford, Holbrook, and Chelmerdiston. And whoever you are, wherever you're watching this from, whenever you're watching it, you're very, very welcome. In our gospel reading today, Jesus takes Peter, James, and John up a mountain with him. And while they are there, his appearance is spectacularly changed. Perhaps changed isn't quite the right word because that would suggest that he becomes something that he wasn't before. Rather, they are enabled to see his true glory. They're enabled to see him as he really is and as he always has been. Imagine what that would do for them. Hearing that voice saying, "This is my son." How it would strengthen their faith, strengthen their assurance, give them complete confidence, and especially coupled with the resurrection, complete confidence to go out into the world in Jesus' name and to face whatever was thrown at them. Fast forward a few years, and we see a man heading on the road to Damascus. And once again, there is a brilliant light and a vision of Jesus. But this time, it's not to strengthen the man's faith, it's to turn his belief system 180 degrees around, to turn it completely around, because this is Saul. And he is on the way to Damascus to hunt down Christians and to take them prisoner. But as a direct result of that experience, as a direct result of that dazzling vision of Jesus, he will change change sides. And from this point on, he will tell everyone who will listen that Jesus is for real the Son of God. For Saul, those events had three significant repercussions. Firstly, as we have already noted, it meant a change of side. Previously, he had been fanatically anti-Christian. As a zealous Jew, he believed that Jesus could not have been the Son of God, as his followers claimed. In his mind, the consequence of that was simple. It meant that Jesus was a blasphemer, and that those who continued to press this claim were blasphemers also. And as blasphemers, the rightful penalty under the law was that they should be put to death. And so that's why Saul was approaching Damascus, and he approached Damascus on one side of the equation and left on the other side. Now it was Paul himself, who was arguing Jesus' claims to be the Messiah, the Son of God. From now on, it is Saul rather, whom others would judge to be a blasphemer. You'll probably know an old hymn that has these words and ask the question, who is on the Lord's side? Who is on the Lord's side? Who will serve the King? Who will be his helpers, other lives to bring? And hopefully we can all say for ourselves, yes, count me in on that. But then it goes on to say that being on one side naturally means not being on another. Who will leave the world side? Who will face the foe? And notice that it's not just a case of moving from one side to another, of leaving the world side and joining the side of Jesus. That place has now become a place of potential hostility. Foes will arise from it, as the hymn says. And that's nothing, of course, less than Jesus himself predicted. Jesus said, he promised even his disciples that if the world hated him for what he said and did, then it will hate us. as we reflect him in what we say and do. And that's not going to be true for all Christians all of the time, but it will be true for some at certain times and in certain places. As a parallel in the world of football, not all footballers are hated when they change sides. Some, when they do come to return for other clubs, are welcomed back warmly and applauded, even though they are now in a different team's colours. But some are never forgiven. Paul Ince, for example, was always booed on his returns to West Ham for events surrounding an acrimonious transfer to Manchester United. The words of the Covenant service put it like this in terms of what we might expect. Christ has many services to be done. Some are easy, others are difficult. Some bring honor, others bring reproach. Some are suitable to our natural inclinations and material interests, others are contrary to both. In other words, there will be times when being a Christian will work out reasonably well for us. The world might even applaud when we're doing the things that Jesus has called us to. But there may be other times when there's a real cost to be paid for being on Jesus' side, when the world will treat us with hatred and persecution just as it did Jesus. So let's pause for a moment and remember those Christians around the world who are right now being persecuted because of the side that they have chosen, because they have chosen to leave the world side and to join the side of Jesus. Secondly, for Saul, his change of side also meant a change of status. He describes his previous life in terms of privilege and achievement, but all that changed when he became a Christian. When he wrote some years later to the church, the Christians in Corinth, that description had become one of being dishonored, being in rags, being brutally treated, being homeless, cursed, persecuted, and slandered. We have become, he says, the scum of the earth. His words, not mine. The garbage of the world. Many Christians around the world will echo those words. In many Christians, being a Christian means not having the same access as other people have to education and jobs, to healthcare and the justice system. You are probably aware of the work of Open Doors, who are an advocacy and support system for persecuted Christians. And this was how last year they described the situation for Christians in Pakistan. Christians in Pakistan are considered second-class citizens and face discrimination at every aspect of life. Occupations that are deemed low, dirty, and degrading, such as working as a sewer cleaner or in a brick kiln, are reserved for Christians. Many are referred to as kura or chura, a derogatory term meaning filthy. And a quote, we are lower class because we are Christians, says one of the 600,000 Pakistani women working in factories. It's an insult to Muslims to eat with us off the same plate. If we touch their plate, it becomes defiled. We have no right to any privileges and have no right to dignity. When I had my son, I was put in a dirty bed that still had blood on from the woman who had given birth before me. Other women were given a clean bed. But for me, the Christian, there was only the option of a dirty one. Again, let's pause. Let's pause and remember and pray for those Christians who right now know full well what it is like to be treated as a second-class citizen or worse because of the side they have chosen to be on. Thirdly, and finally, Saul, I'll probably use the names interchangeably. Saul knew what it was like to lose his safety and security. Here at the beginning and again at the end of his ministry, there are Jewish plots to assassinate him. We said earlier on that as soon as he changed sides and became a Christian, it put a target on his back. In this passage, we're told that Saul preached in the synagogues of Damascus and that he baffled the Jews living there by proving that Jesus is the Messiah. This is what leads to the plot to kill him and the need for his nighttime escape. Fascinatingly, he describes elsewhere that it wasn't just the Jews who were out to get him. In a second letter written to the Corinthians, we read these words. In Damascus, the governor under King Aretas or Aretas had the city of the Damascenes guarded in order to arrest me. But I was lowered in a basket from a window in the wall and slipped through his hands. That seems to be very much the instance that we've been reading about in Acts. Now, King Aretas wasn't king over Damascus. He had no jurisdiction there. Aretas was king of the Nabateans, whose empire was centered on Petra in modern-day Jordan. When Paul later was talking about it, he spoke about spending some time in Arabia after his conversion, and this, rather than Saudi Arabia, is the area to which he was referring. And it would seem that whilst he was there, his newfound faith found a way of rubbing up the wrong way the Nabateans as well. We can't be certain of how this situation played out, but as King Aretas had no authority over the city of Damascus, it's quite likely that Saul was having to escape not just from conspirators inside the city, but also from Nabatean guards who'd been posted on the outside like cats, waiting for a mouse to come out. Saul was able to escape on that occasion, but many Christians aren't so fortunate. In Nigeria, for example, one of the worst countries for persecution of Christians around the world, on average, about once every 2 hours, a Christian loses their life. And that's reflected in other countries as well, either at the hands of the state or at the hands of religious militants. And as we close, let's pray for our sisters and brothers in the faith, that they may be strengthened and that they may have that constant reassurance, as Saul did, as Peter, James, and John did, that the Jesus they follow truly is the Son of God. And I pray that for you as well, whatever you may be going through at this time, whether you feel that being on the side of Jesus at the moment feels like you're going through good times or bad times. I pray that God may strengthen you too and give you that reassurance that Jesus truly is his Son.